That's why when you see moral beauty, somebody serving somebody else, it gives you that. Rhett Diesner, the psychologist, who by the way, is Rainn Wilson's uncle. Yeah. The world's leading expert in moral elevation and the physiological impact of moral elevation.
Rainn is very philosophical also.
He's great. He's a great friend. We're great friends. We grew up 5 miles apart from each other in Seattle at the same age. Yeah. We didn't know each other as kids, but we bonded over,
Small world.
watching Gilligan's Island on Channel 11 when we were in 5th grade or something. And it's really important to keep in mind that there are ways to transcend. And there's some really well-established ones to do it. I go to Mass every day. It's a venerable way to experience transcendence. And there are other ways to experience transcendence. Now, I'm not going to speak to the metaphysics of who's cosmically right. That's a completely different conversation. I don't know, right? But I do know when it comes to transcendence, because that's research that I've done. And Lisa Miller has done that. She teaches at Columbia. She does neuroscience and social psychology at Columbia. She's the world's leading expert on how the brain requires transcendence. How you get experiences that are completely inaccessible unless you experience transcendence. Lots of ways to do it. Study the Stoics and live according to their dictates. Walk the Brahma Muhurta an hour, in the morning without devices, starting before dawn. Practice of Vipassana meditation. Listen to the works of Johann Sebastian Bach and stand in awe of the greatest composer who ever lived, or go to Mass.
I want to tee this up. I didn't know what your answer was going to be, but this is an area. It is one of a few areas that have been of greatest interest and focus for me for the last, one could argue since 2000, probably 12, but it might even predate that. Particularly, I would say in the last 5 years. And for people who are interested in digging into this, and I suggest that almost everyone should be very deeply interested. You mentioned the book Awe.
Yeah.
There's also some fantastic writing and articles out of Johns Hopkins related to awe. And if awe seems too abstract, you could think of it as wonder. You could think of it also as self-transcendence. And I'm going to be shooting myself in the foot a little bit because I just wrote 10 pages on this that I need to refine before putting on my blog. But people think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs as a pyramid. And at the top, you have self-actualization. In fact, the pyramid and that strict hierarchy were created by consultants and other people who commercialized the writings of Maslow, who later revised that to have self-transcendence.
At the top.
At the top.
At the top. He talked about it much later in his career, too, because he got more religious as he got older.
Yeah.
People get more religious as they get older. They believe less in Santa Claus and more in God as they get older.
They believe more in death, too.
Yeah. And life is messy, and they come to terms with that. And Scott Barry Kaufman talks a lot about this. The guy who is sort of the master of the dark triad and a lot of pathologies, but he's also really good on how
to ask about the dark triad.
Oh, boy. I've written a lot about the dark triad.
Sounds like a great fantasy novel.
Anybody who wants to know that's your first husband.
Okay. I'm going to have to leave that alone. I'm going to resist the temptation.
Next time on the show.
Just for a second.
This is important because self-transcendence is something that tends to happen a little bit later, but it's not incompatible with lower order needs.
Do you mind if I just
Please,
for a second?
Because I think this is the point you're driving at,
Yeah,
right?
Let me ride the ketones and caffeine for a moment here. The awe, self-transcendence, wonder, it seems perhaps abstracted, might seem hand-wavy for people who have already achieved success. I don't think that's true at all. And in fact, the happiest people, happy isn't exactly the right word, but the people who seem most at peace, calmest, with regular joy in their lives, good relationships, all have regular doses of self-transcendence, whether they are wilderness guides who do not